Hi, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, we're talking all things money mindset and a thriving marriage with Emily Williams. Emily Williams is a money mindset expert, success coach, author, and CEO of two companies who at one point couldn't get a job at Starbucks. After experiencing a quarter life crisis, she moved from Ohio to London, where she knew no one, and in 2014 launched her first company, I Heart My Life. She made $442 in the first month and then went on to hit six figures in 6 months before her 30th birthday. She grew it to seven figures in under 18 months. Today, she is still the CEO of I Heart My Life and works with female entrepreneurs all over the world in her Emily Williams brand, helping them bust through the obstacles that hold their dreams and goals hostage so they can free themselves to live the lives they want. And she has a wonderful marriage that I'm going to ask her about. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to finally meet you because we were introduced by Trisha Brook, who is one of my favorite people and who has also been on the podcast. And I want to hear, really starting with the money mindset piece. Was that something you just had innately, or did you have to cultivate that? How did you do what you did?
Yes, so I definitely did not have that innately. It was something, as you just read there. I made $442 in my first month of business, and I knew that I wanted to make much more than that. I wanted to be able to go full time in my company, but I had no idea how to sell. I didn't know how to run a business, and I didn't realize that there was so much more than strategy that I needed to create success. And so I was lucky enough to be working with a coach that specialized not only in business strategy, but also in the mindset pieces. And she loved talking about money. And one of the things I really learned from her was that we all have money beliefs and money blocks that are holding us back and stopping us from creating the wealth or the life or even the relationship. There are other blocks that we have around relationships that we want. And so it's really important for you to not only know what you want to achieve, but you have to become the person who thinks the way that it's going to require to get you the results that you want.
Oh, I love how you just put that because that's so aligned with what I teach about relationship, which is, it's not about just having a checklist of what you want in a person, but it's about becoming the person that the person you want to be with would want to be with.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a big journey for me. And in the beginning, I had this period of 54 no's in a row where I had 54 people on sales calls say no to me time after time. And I
Wow.
remember getting on a call with my coach and I was like, this is not working. What is going on? And she helped me see that I had a block around actually talking about money. So
Mm.
people would say to me, oh, yes, I'd love to work with you. But then they would say in the next breath, but I don't have the money or it's too expensive. And I would just be like, okay, no worries, bye. And that would be the end of the conversation. And so I learned to get comfortable talking about money and going deeper with my clients about their finances. And I realized it was actually in service to them for me to just pry a bit more and say, if you want to work with me and then the next breath you're saying it's too expensive, let's really look at that and see what's actually going on beneath the surface. Because we all know that we will move past fear, we will move mountains to find something, to get something that we really want. So where's the disconnect here? And when I got comfortable having those conversations, I started to realize that more often than not, it wasn't actually about the money. It was about fear. It was about doubt. It was about what are people going to think of me? And so my personal belief is that it's never actually about the money, but we have to do the work to get there to see what the belief is or what's actually running the show in order to transform that.
I so agree. And what do you find is, because I see this the same with relationship coaching as well. There's a desire to make the relationship better, and then, I don't have the money or I don't have the time. And to me, it's a question of priorities, right? So it's like, what are you prioritizing in your life? Like you said, we'll move hell or high water to get what we really want. So what do you think? Is it simply fear that stops us the most?
Oftentimes, yeah. And I think it's not necessarily connecting to the desire. So often the fear trumps the desire. But if we actually tune in to, okay, what are the benefits of spending this money? What are the benefits of investing? What are the benefits of putting myself out there in this way? What are the benefits of the relationship of my dreams? And I think there's so much programming from previous generations, parents, society, things that we just absorbed as children that makes it difficult to do something that is not the norm in terms of how we've been raised, because we want to fit in. We still have that biology around, being someone who belongs and someone who is loved. And so doing something different, whether it's hiring somebody like you or starting the business or charging more, it just brings up this whole mountain of fear, and people don't understand. And then they just blame the money, or they say they don't have the time, or whatever the excuse is, but it's really what's going on beneath the surface. And then sometimes it also is an element of not feeling worthy of that thing that they want to create or have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I see that a lot too. I'm feeling a through line. So you work with money mindset, you talk about money, but there's a way that you're talking about it that it's really about the deeper thing. And what's coming to mind as a question is, what do you notice if someone has a block over here with the money piece? Do you notice it expressing similarly in other areas? Is that something that you end up working with? You end up touching all these different areas of their life? Because to me, it all feels so related.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because I'm going to have to give everyone like an updated bio about me, because my work has morphed, which it often does, as business owners.
Oh, yeah,
So,
mine has too.
yeah. So I found over the years that as much as I love entrepreneurs and driven women who want to make a lot of money, I don't want to support people in just that one area, because if you're making a ton of money, but your relationship is in the gutter, like, is that really success? Is that really happiness? No. Right. So we have to look at the whole picture. And you're completely right in that if you're feeling lack in one area, most likely you're living in lack in many areas. So, for example, I often see that people who have a belief around lack of money also have a belief around lack of time. And so we see correlations across the board. So my desire is really to help people have an abundant mindset overall, right? Like, you can have it all. And I'm not saying you snap your fingers and have it all. I'm not saying it's not going to be a process, right? And we might look at one stage first and then move on to the next, but there can be abundance in every area of your life. And so I think it's really important to identify, the money blocks might be rearing their ugly heads right now, but what other areas do we also want to improve and focus on so that we can create that holistic success?
Oh, gorgeously put. And that's something I've noticed a lot in myself and in my clients too, that as their relationships improve, very often they'll get promoted at work, or new money will come in that they didn't see coming in before, and things like that, because they're feeling more abundant in the one area they happen to be focused on. Unexpected abundance can also show up. Do you see that too?
Oh yeah. And it's interesting because even the relationship with self and self-love. So many of my clients over the years, they'll say something like, I can't believe it. The month that I took the best care of myself, I made the most money. And we're like, well, yeah, because your energy was completely different. Just like if you're dating and you're showing up completely down in the dumps and your energy is not high, then you're not going to attract that person. And it's the same thing with money and other things that you're trying to attract. So it's so important to look at yourself as a whole and to not necessarily think that this money mindset work is just about money, because it's so much deeper than that. And you can apply it to so many different areas.
Amen, sister. So I want to turn to talking a bit about your marriage, because I'm so inspired by what you and James have been able to create together, and the kind of support and mutual. I'm doing an infinity sign with my hands. For those of you who are not watching on Zoom, it's to me a sensation of that kind of infinity of support and mutual co-creation, co-collaboration that goes between you two. And I'd love for you to say more about that, because I think a lot of women have internalized this belief that we can't have it all, or that we have to sacrifice ourselves to have a banging business. And I just don't believe that's true.
Yeah. So I was really blessed in that my parents have been together since they were 15, and they have an amazing relationship. My grandparents, one of them just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. And so I saw amazing relationships modeled for me. And so it was actually really interesting because, well, I didn't share this part of the story yet. When I graduated from college, I thought I was going to go and get a master's in counseling psychology. Long story short, I was literally driving there and had this feeling in my gut like it wasn't the right next step for me. So I turned the car around, went back to Ohio, and fell into this major quarter life crisis where I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. And that's where I couldn't get that job at Starbucks. But I just kept tuning into what I was feeling called to do and what clarity I did have. And I kept hearing like this little whisper saying that I was meant to move to London, England. And
Mm.
for, someone from Ohio whose whole family lived like 10 minutes away, that was a really weird decision. But I followed that instinct, moved to London, and ended up meeting my husband online a year later. And so it was really like at the forefront of my mind to not only figure out my career moves, because I always felt like I was meant for something big, but to find that spouse and that person who I was meant to share my life with. And I really feel like that partnership was the thing that I wanted even more than the business for whatever reason. And
Mm.
so when we met, I mean, we were completely different people. We're about to celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary this year, but we never intended to work together because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do with my life when he met me. And so starting I Heart My Life happened a few years after we got married. And he's always been super, super supportive. I mean, he lent me the money to start that coaching program that I said I was a part of. And he was making about $36,000 a year, and the program was $7,500. And so, he really had a ton of faith in me. And at the time I had, less than no money. And so he was really my first investor and has believed in me every step of the way. But yeah, it was never part of the intention for us to work together. He ended up leaving his job about a year after I started I Heart My Life because it had taken off. But yeah, you can ask many more questions about that if you want, but that's kind of how it all started.
That's amazing. And yeah, I want to ask about what it's like. Like, are there practices or intentions or deliberateness around work is work and home is home, or does it all bleed together for you? How do you two navigate that dynamic?
Yeah. So I guess the short answer is sometimes.
Mm.
But what we've learned is to be honest with each other. So if there are days where, I've been on calls all day, I really don't want to talk about work, I'll be honest with him. So we often take an evening walk and we'll ask each other, is this the point where you want to cut off the talk about work? And so we're just really communicative about our own boundaries with what we want to discuss. And that could also mean when we go out on dates or when we're together on the weekends. But the really amazing thing is that we both love what we do so much and we're in the same space that it's really, it's a blessing to be able to have such a shared interest. And we don't have a lot of extracurricular activities that we love to do together, which is interesting to think about. But our work is that commonality, that common thread. And so it's not normally heavy to talk about, but we do communicate if we feel like it's not somewhere we want to go in that moment.
I love how organic that feels, that it doesn't have to be a rigid, like, oh, it's 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
office door shut. But because I think it's true, as passionate entrepreneurs, sometimes we want to talk shop, even when we're off, because creative ideas are coming or this or that. And who better to talk shop with than your partner? But at the same time, sometimes we get full. Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, my husband's very much an outward processor. And so,
Mm.
we love talking about different ideas and things we want to do. And I think honest communication has been the main thing that's been so pivotal in our relationship, and just being almost unapologetic about what we need and what we want and what we don't want in every area across the board. That's been a game changer.
Was that something you had to learn and develop together, or did you both have that capacity sort of already honed when you got together?
We had to learn it for sure. And the simplest example is, I don't know about you, but I think it's really strange that we spend so much of our life sleeping in a bed alone. And then all of a sudden, when we get married, like we're meant to sleep with somebody else. And I was always a very light sleeper. It's something I'm working on. But there were times, even in the beginning, when we had no money, where I'd go and I'd sleep on this like tiny couch because I just couldn't fall asleep with him next to me. And I would make myself so wrong for that.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, like the goal is to sleep. And you won't even notice if the other person is there or not when you're actually asleep.
You're sleeping.
Yeah. And so I'm like, why am I making myself wrong for this? So we actually had a relationship coach who supported us with what she calls exquisite honesty. And this was one of those examples, those things that I had to learn around not making myself wrong and just be like, you know what, I want to sleep in the guest room tonight. And that's going to create, I'm going to be a much better person tomorrow if I do get better rest and sleep. And I think it ultimately comes down to just putting yourself first. And I think, we're not taught that in relationship. We're actually taught like, you complete me and to be selfless and all this stuff. But how in the world are we going to be able to show up as our best self if we're not filling our cup first?
Amen. And with that notion of we're somehow incomplete with the other person, I feel like that bleeds into our sales calls. If we don't have that relationship with ourselves where we feel whole and we show up for ourselves and we do what we need to do to be the best version of ourselves that we want to be every day, that somebody else can enhance that, but they're not the reason for it. And I think, do you see a parallel, like when people have that kind of orientation toward relationship, that something can often be off in how they do their sales calls too?
Yeah, there's an element of codependence for sure. And I think, being in the coaching space and over the last 8 years, I've worked with a lot of other coaches. There can sometimes be an odd dynamic between coach and client as well. Like,
Yeah.
if my client doesn't need me, like I'm not doing my job, or I need to be there every second for my client, which means I never turn off my phone or my email. And so there's this unhealthy, lack of boundary there.
Yeah, I feel like shoring up those boundaries, both at home and with our clients, it helps everybody.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about what's it been like navigating each of your roles? Like, did it take a while for both of you to figure out, like, this is my right role in the company and this is my right role? Did you step on toes in the beginning? How'd you work all that out?
Yeah. So my husband became a certified high performance coach in 2015, and he knew that he wanted to, get into coaching, and that was his main passion. But I think for me, I always hoped that he would want to be like my operator or my OBM or something, because that would be so convenient.
Wouldn't it?
That's not him at all. And so we kind of fumbled our way through figuring out what it looks like in the company. And ultimately, I own the company. I'm essentially his boss in many ways. And he had to kind of release any preconceived notions of what he needed to be in the role and just realize like what his true zone of genius is and what his passion is. And I think, if he was here, he would say this as well, that he had a lot of stuff that he had to work through around how we work differently. I move very quickly. I get more done in a day than most people get done in a week. And that's not me bragging, but I just have this ability to focus and just do a bunch of stuff. And for him, like, he moves a little bit more deliberately and slower, and he likes to have more space. And so like figuring out that we work differently and not making it wrong has been such a kind of weight off of our shoulders. And there's so many things that he's much better at that I'm not good at all. So just like, recognizing the differences and owning our strengths and being able to honor that instead of making it wrong.
That's so huge. Yeah, we're very similar because I move really quickly and Patrick is much more deliberate and methodical. And in the beginning, there was a tendency to make one way wrong or the other until we figured out, wait a minute, these are super complementary strengths. And if we harness what each of us is good at, we can go so much further than we would without that other component.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think it's just about releasing your ego and just knowing that there's nothing wrong either way. And in fact, like you just said, there's so many strengths that you can rely upon with the other person, or that they can bring to the role or the company that you couldn't. And just, consistently, asking yourself, how is my ego running the show here? And how can I release that and just trust that we're doing the right thing? We're in the right place. Like, we're showing up in the way we're meant to, and no one needs to change.
Oh, that's such a powerful question. How is my ego running the show here? Because that opens up so many possibilities to do things differently or receive input or just get out of that little rigid box.
Exactly.
So coming back to money mindset, if somebody's sort of first realizing, oh my God, I have a block around money, I have a block around relationship, I have a block around how much good I feel I'm allowed to have in my life, where do you suggest they begin?
So I think it's really important that you first actually look at your desires. And I
Mm.
use that word deliberately because, it's so much deeper than just wanting something. It's really something your heart is calling you for. So maybe I'll just use a tangible example. Maybe your desire is to start your own business. And yet, so much is coming up for you around fear. What will people think? What if I fail? How can I charge for my services? What if I go bankrupt? So, you want to observe the desire and then immediately notice what fears come up that are stopping you from moving in the direction of the desire. And then,
Mm.
what I like to do is I follow that. So, for example, if the fear is, what if I fail? Okay. So most people think, well, then I'm not going to have any money. And then, people are going to disown me. I'm going to end up on the street. I'm not going to be able to get a job. And so I did this with myself in the very beginning when I had the fear of starting. And at the time, I didn't have a home. I didn't have any children. I had no real responsibilities. So when I followed the fear, it was like, honestly, the worst thing that would happen would be I might have to borrow some money from my family, or I would just get another job. And so when I looked at the reality of what would actually happen, it wasn't death. No one, was going to come and attack me. It was these things that were definitely figure outable. And that's the case for most of our limiting beliefs or our blocks around money or whatever it is that we want to achieve. And so really being able to be the observer of your mind and recognizing that you are not your mind doesn't have to run the show. And in fact, your mind and the decades of programming are probably stopping you from getting whatever it is that you desire, and then being able to start to flip the switch. And so for me, what that really looks like was just replacing my thoughts with more positive thoughts. And it can sound really simplistic, and it actually is. It's just taking the current limiting belief, flipping it, and making it something positive. Like, I'm starting this business and I know that the clients are there for me. The clients are on their way. I'm going to make the amount of money that I want to make. I'm going to make six figures or whatever it is. And just starting to reprogram your mind to think in a different way. And then I always say, it's not like you just go to the mountaintop and meditate your way to success or think your way to success. You obviously have to take the action as well. And so ask yourself, what is one step I could take today in the direction of my dreams? Because
Mm.
we also want to kind of break down that fear that's stopping us. And one of the easiest ways, in addition to the reprogramming, is for your mind to start to see tangible proof that you can do this. And
Yeah.
sometimes that actually means that you look at other people doing what it is that you want to do or making the amount of money you want to make. And you could start to see, like, you know what, that is possible. They are humans having a human experience. If that's possible for them, it's possible for me. And then you can also get some clues about what steps you can take to create the same results.
Fantastic. And I love bringing that piece of looking at other people, because so often we get this advice like, don't compare yourself, don't compare yourself. And our tendency natively, I think our brains will tend to look at other people and put ourselves down in relation to them. But again, to flip that, what I'm hearing you say is to flip that into, if they can do it, I can do it too. So it's not evidence that I suck, it's evidence that it's possible.
Yeah, you have to know when you're using your comparison for good and bad. And this, I always talk about jealousy and how we can use jealousy for good. And that's
Yeah.
one way. When you see somebody out there who has something you want, instead of making that make you feel bad, what if you use that to inspire yourself and remind yourself what's possible and give you clarity about what direction you want to go in?
Exactly. And what's an action, again, to ground it in action? What's an action you could take to go toward that? Maybe you notice that they post a certain time, number of times a week on social, and you're not doing that. Or maybe you notice that they pay attention to their partner in ways that you don't,
Yeah,
and you could start taking those actions, and then you can start to have more of what you want.
exactly.
So I understand that you have a free gift for our listeners. It's a money mindset. Can you say a bit about it? Is it
Yeah. Yeah. So you asked, where is the best place to start if you know you have money blocks?
Yeah.
So if you suspect that there are some blocks that are holding you back, even if you've created a lot of wealth, but you're not able to go to the next level, maybe you've been kind of plateauing, or maybe you're just getting started on wealth creation, I have a free money mindset masterclass. And if you just go to emilywilliams.com/money, you can watch that. It's immediately available for download. And there's also a workbook that comes with it that will really support you in understanding what is stopping you from creating wealth and how to actually transform it and get the results that you're craving.
That's awesome. And all the other links to connect with Emily are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you check out the notes, go go check out her websites and her Instagram, and both are really beautiful. There's one for I Heart My Life and one for her personally. So is there any final thought you'd like to leave folks with today?
I would just say that anything is possible. And I know that you're in the business of creating a new reality and supporting people with their relationships. And I think it all just starts with belief and believing that you can have what it is that you want to create. And then there are amazing mentors and teachers like yourself out there who will help you have it. So just focus on that belief. And if you can't generate that for yourself, focus on our belief for you and in you, and start moving forward towards the direction of your dreams.
Yes, we believe in you. Thank you so much for coming on today. This has been Relationship Alchemy with Emily Williams today. And until next time, remember that a great relationship starts with you.